Hello everybody and welcome to another top 5 board gaming video. Today's topic is all about healthcare, and more particularly healthcare in the US, which sucks. So there's a lot of games that have some element of healthcare to them, whether it's simply about very basic treating of disease or learning about disease or any of this type of thing. And so I wanted to go over my top 5 personal favorites and primarily do a little bit of joking with some tongue-in-cheek stuff in relation to the fact that US healthcare is literally the worst in the so-called first world. So it should be fun because we're going to poke fun at how horrible everything is here, especially with COVID going around. Seems like it's very timely. But that said, as always, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Do you have any thoughts on these particular games? And of course, we don't want to get super political with regard to COVID and all that kind of stuff, but this is just for funsies and it's meant to be mostly a joke, but at the same time, really, the healthcare system really sucks here. But that said, we're just going to go ahead and dive in with my number 5. At number 5, I've got Pandemic. This is probably a pretty easy and basic one to talk about with this particular case, because the idea is that you're going around treating particular diseases and eventually trying to cure them. The fact is, though, that as far as healthcare is concerned, this doesn't go in depth into what people deal with on a day-to-day basis in terms of actually dealing with doctors and nurses and insurance companies and all of that kind of stuff. But fundamentally, you do still have the idea of you are trying to cure diseases, you are trying to do this, that, and the other, and it does involve healthcare to a good extent, and of course it's very easy to get your hands on. So that said, with all of it, Pandemic is still my number 5. At number 2, I've got Pathogenesis. Similarly to Pandemic, this is a game that doesn't really go into the whole insurance thing and stuff like that. It does have some specific mechanics that are based off of, like, you have an open wound or you have antiseptic and things along those lines. But fundamentally, this is a deck building game where you're actually playing as bacteria or other infectious diseases that are trying to enter a human body. And I like this game because it does a wonderful job of teaching the actual immunological properties of fighting off disease. Again, doesn't necessarily involve healthcare, quote unquote, but you do have some cards that do specifically involve things like HMOs and bandages and, you know, keeping clean environments and all that sort of thing, which are critical when it comes to healthcare, but it's still lower on the list because it doesn't really dive into that sort of thing. It's still a great game though. I absolutely love it. Pathogenesis, my number 4. At number 3, I've got Dice Hospital. Now we're really getting into something that has an actual healthcare component to it, where the idea is that you roll dice that represent workers that are actually patients. And the idea is that you have severe cases of patients, you have less severe cases of patients, and you as the doctor are trying to go and treat them. You don't have so much going on with regard to like insurance, HMOs, and stuff like that, but at the same time, you do still have very much that healthcare environment of you're playing as a doctor, nurse, whatever it happens to be, and you are trying to help the patients. That said, how many doctors do you know really try to help their patients without gouging every penny they can from the insurance companies? Again, very specific to the US, but still, it's really annoying. Either way, Dice Hospital, it's a fun little game. It does have some good worker placement mechanics to it. It does have some depth to it and some nice meatiness. It's a good game overall, and that's why it's my number 3. At number 2, I've got Doctor Wars. This is an interesting one that seems a little bit more akin to really how the American healthcare system can work, in that you actually have competition between the doctors, the nurses, and all of these types of people to really take credit for what's going on, because the fact is that when it comes to insurance billing, you want to make sure that your name is on that dotted line as being the person who did the thing. At least I would think, because it helps your evaluations and all of that kind of stuff. I honestly have no idea. I only watch it from TV sitcoms, so I don't know how much of it is true. But suffice it to say, the idea is that whoever is highest ranking in a room when a patient is treated gets credit for it, and that means that you get the points. Whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. And there are different roles that you have, ranging from a nurse up to an attending physician, that have different capabilities. So some of them can move faster, nurses can block, all of this sort of thing. And it really does become a very strategic type of gameplay. And at the same time, it is to an extent how I imagine some things go, especially with very unusual cases of disease, because all of the doctors and nurses and everybody want to get their names on those lines for those insurance forms. Maybe, possibly, theoretically, again, talking about the US healthcare system, that's how I imagine it works, but I truly do not know. It is how I picture it, though, as a devastating wasteland where you are very cutthroat and all of this type of thing. But regardless, seems like a great game. It's a ton of fun. It's very much seemingly in line with how the American healthcare system works, and thus the Doctor Wars is my number 2. At number 1, I have Healthy Heart Hospital, which really seems to completely embody everything that is wrong with the American healthcare system. Healthy Heart Hospital is on the brink of collapse, and a bunch of doctors have essentially formed a coup d'etat in order to take over it, and the idea is that we are going to do better for our patients. And then they become money-grubbing scoundrels. So that really tracks when it comes to the American healthcare system. But that said, fundamentally, we're talking about mechanics that are about moving around, treating patients, having worker placement, and all of this sort of thing. So you do have a meaty strategic game, but very much with the tongue-in-cheek idea of American healthcare and American insurance companies and dealing with all of this and getting the payouts and all that kind of stuff is really what everything is about, and it all sucks and it's all terrible. So in that sense, I think that this best embodies the idea of the American healthcare system, and in that sense it's really, really depressing, but at the same time it's a good game. So Healthy Hospital, or Healthy Heart Hospital rather, is my number 1. Well everybody, that's going to be it for me. I hope that you enjoyed this video on my top 5 favorite games based around healthcare. Again, this is primarily about US based healthcare, so please everybody put in the comments below, wherever it is you live, how much better your healthcare system is, so that we can all get super jealous. As you all know, we are completely dropping the ball on COVID and all of this type of thing, and in part that's due to healthcare. It's due to people being frankly stupid, and that's about my convictions and all this kind of thing, but I'm not going to go into a rant about that. The fact is that our healthcare system is broken, and it's kind of funny that we have board games that exemplify how broken the American healthcare system is. And so I thought it would be kind of funny, but in the end I feel kind of depressed. So go ahead and put fun comments below and talk about how wonderful Sweden and Finland and Germany and all of those places are, where you get free healthcare. And also Canada, neighbors to the north, they think they're so cool with their Tim Hortons and their donuts. Now I want a donut. But regardless, that said, as always, if you haven't done so already, please take a look at my various social media pages where you can interact with myself and my channel in a whole bunch of really fun ways. Now, obviously doesn't need to be said, but COVID is still spreading. If you're in the US, stay as far away from everybody as possible, stay as safe as you possibly can, and keep your family safe. Everybody else around the world, you seem to be fine, so don't worry about it. It's just the US that's being really, really stupid right now. So whatever, no worries for you. But regardless, thank you so much as always for watching. Hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.